This is my reaction to the UFC 289 press conference, which featured Charles Oliveira, Beneil Dariush, Amanda Nunes, Irene Aldana, Nate Landwehr, Dan Ige, Marc-Andre Barrial, Eric Anders, Mike Malott, and Adam Fugit. I wasn't expecting much from this press conference, so it did surprise me in some moments. So we're going to talk about that in today's video. Sometimes it's better that way, you know? Sometimes it's better to have low expectations and get something out of the experience instead of really overhyping what you think a press conference is going to be and then have it be really boring. That is the worst of the occasions. But let's talk about this press conference. So I have some notes here of the key moments that I want to go through. Amanda Nunes said the regular stuff about wanting to finish her fight and that she's going to get a finish over Irene Aldana and she's really focused for the fight and she's been training hard and all of the regular stuff that she says that isn't interesting whatsoever. We also get a really dry answer from Irene Aldana, but she is speaking her second language, so it was expected. I didn't think we were going to hear a stand-up routine out of her at this press conference, I'm going to be honest. At least it was in English and people could understand her. That's good enough, Irene Aldana. Round of applause. You're stunning and brave. We move on. Mike Malott is literally the welterweight Michael Chandler. And Mike Malott might be the guy that I'm speaking about the most in this video. I'm going to be honest with you guys. Other than Nate the Train, Mike Malott stole the show. He stole the show at the press conference. I'm going to get straight into it here with him. He's like Michael Chandler at welterweight. Just the way you knew as soon as he opened his mouth, there was going to be a monologue. It was going to be an epic speech. It was kind of cringe, I'm going to be honest with you. It wasn't the most entertaining. It wasn't funny. It wasn't crazy. But I appreciate someone who's willing to somewhat hype up their fight and make it somewhat more interesting for the main card of the pay-per-view that they're on. Think about that. Normally, the people on the main card of the pay-per-view, less and less nowadays, but they used to actually deserve to be on the pay-per-view. So it's less bad when they don't hype up the fight. But imagine literally getting a 1 in a million chance to headline a pay-per-view that you don't belong in the main card position for, and then squandering that opportunity by not being hype at the press conference. How dare you not create some kind of hype? You gifted yourself an opportunity on the main card of a pay-per-view and at a press conference. At least Mike Malott rose to the occasion. I can imagine Chael Sonnen making a video about him soon or something along those lines, because it seems like someone Chael Sonnen would really appreciate. He had his moment in front of the microphone. He had about 16 minutes of a press conference in front of him, and he made sure to give the most energy at that press conference. And what do you know? A bunch more of the questions went back to him to ask him about more, and he got more airtime because of it. He had some good lines in there. He was trying to hype himself up. I think he could be a Canadian superstar moving forward because, you know, he has a personality there. It's not the craziest personality. It's not crazy funny. It's not crazy cool or anything along those lines, but there's something there. And I think Canada could really rally behind him if he does get an impressive win, being basically the only Canadian prospect on the card that's undefeated in the UFC, on a finish streak. Every single one of his fights has finished in the first round, if he's won them, that is. So I really want to rate Mike Malott for at least using the opportunity that he had to get the hype around the card a little bit more, because he's got the Nelk sponsorship on his top. And I'm telling you, if he has a great Mike moment after a first round win and gets on the microphone and has a great moment in Canada and rallies the fans behind him, he could be a future star in that Canadian market, because they're desperate for one right now. We move on to another one. Charles Oliveira got a question and he had a pretty cool answer. He basically said, you know, and all this type of stuff. But he actually ended up saying in English, in a translation, "A wounded lion is still a lion. I'll be reborn from the ashes." Trying to speak like the translator. He kind of speaks like a Nord from Viking. A Nord from Skyrim, sorry, not Viking. The way he speaks, that translator guy. But he said, "A wounded lion is still a lion. I will be reborn from the ashes," which was a cool little line from Charles Oliveira. I'm sure that'll look good in like a YouTube short with the subtitles translating what he's saying as he says them, and then a crazy edit afterwards if he does win. So it was good to have Charles Oliveira there, and also good to see that Charles Oliveira has reached a point now where it doesn't matter if he's not in Brazil. He's getting cheered and adored by the crowd. I like it when that happens for a fighter, you know, when a fighter who used to get no love all of a sudden is like cheered in Canada when they're from Brazil. That's always good to see, and it was good to see the Canadian crowd get behind Charles Oliveira. He said he's not worried about what Beneil Dariush brings to the game. He's only focused on what he brings to the game, and said that that's going to be enough to get him the win this weekend and all that type of stuff. Dariush is a very dry personality as well, so he came out and said that he considered Oliveira the second greatest lightweight of all time. That is debatable. There have been some other lightweights that have done very well in history, so I don't know if I'd really put him at number 2 yet. I think he would have been at number 2 if he would have beaten Makhachev, or he might be tied with number 1, but you'd have to say number 2 because Khabib was undefeated in the weight class. Either way, he thinks that Oliveira is the second greatest lightweight of all time. He has a ton of respect for Charles Oliveira. More Dariush stuff, a little bit more Dariush stuff. Dariush speaking a little bit more. More Dariush stuff. He's just such a personality. Really, really fun to listen to. Either way, the media members found a way to annoy me again by doing their job badly, which is really annoying, but the media members seem to have a knack for doing this whenever there's a press conference for a pay-per-view. So they keep doing this, okay? They keep making it really annoying, and you know why they do it? They ask a question to Dana White that they know he is not going to be able to answer or want to answer, just to have a little dig in the form of a question to Dana White. Can you confirm the winner of Oliveira Dariush gets the title shot? Of course he's not going to 100% confirm it at a press conference. Of course he's not, because if Oliveira wins, that leaves him in a weird situation. But if Dariush wins, he 100% deserves a title shot next. 100%. We move on. Nate the Train livens up the press conference a bit as well. Says he's going to kick Ige in the head. I love Nate the Train, dude. There are 2 potential future stars on this card. Mike Malott for the Canadian audience to sort of rally behind, and Nate the Train for the MMA audience to rally behind, because we are on the train. We're on the tracks. Nate the Train coming through in Canada. He hyped it up. What's up? I've been waiting to say Nate the Train in the press conference on the main card. He starts hyping it up big time. Says he's probably going to kick Ige in the head. I like the energy. Him and Ige actually had a moment at the end of the press conference that we'll get to soon as well, where they trash talked. They should have capitalized a little bit more on that moment, but Nate the Train livened up the crowd a little bit, livened up the press conference. We found out that Oliveira has not watched back the Makhachev fight, which is an interesting topic. Dariush said that he doesn't really mind that Oliveira hasn't watched it back. He doesn't see anything in that. He doesn't think it's important whatsoever. And I knew about this yesterday when the story came out in my live chat, but it's interesting that Oliveira hasn't watched back that fight. I don't think he needs to. I'll be honest with you. It's not like he's been completely undefeated his entire career, never lost before ever, and that's his first loss, and he needs to watch it back and see what went down. Oliveira's been losing fights, you know what I mean? Like, this recent streak he was on didn't always used to be that way. He has a lot of losses on his record. I'm sure he knows just the mindset. He must know what to do that is best for him. I don't think it's good to dwell on the fight with Makhachev, to watch it over and over again, because then if it ends up being a potential rematch, you almost don't want to remember how that first fight went. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's almost like, when you go through trauma, maybe. When people go through trauma, you kind of, the best case scenario is that they accidentally forget what they went through, and then it won't really affect them in the future as much. You know what I'm saying? If they just happen to naturally forget what they went through, it's sort of the best case scenario for them. Like, some people will probably pray they could forget certain things. So the fact that Oliveira is not keeping it in the forefront of his mind and watching back that loss over and over again, I think will just give him a bit more of a less of a mental disadvantage if he does go into a Makhachev rematch down the line, because you don't want to see yourself getting mauled, because then if you watch yourself getting mauled by Makhachev and dropped and subbed by him over and over again, and it's fresh in your mind, you might not have the confidence as much going into that rematch that you're supposed to be some bulletproof assassin that's going to beat Makhachev. You know what I mean? We move on to another thing that came up at the press conference, which was Dan Ige hyping up the crowd, which was pretty interesting. A little bit weird at one moment because he just stood there and didn't have much else to say after hyping up the crowd and getting them a little bit amped up. But I appreciate the effort. At least there was some effort from Dan Ige to hype up his fight with Nate Landwehr. They have done a decent job at kindling a bit of that attention for the fight and making it a little bit more tense, a little bit more amped up, a little bit more exciting. And then we had Mike Malott again, literally the welterweight Michael Chandler. Potential Canadian star, could get fans. He could. He genuinely could. He's Canadian. That's enough for the Canadians. They've got no one right now. You know what I'm saying? It's not like, can he be a Canadian super fan, or can he be a Canadian superstar? Can we be a fan of him? We're already a fan of all these other Canadian athletes that are in the UFC and doing really good. No, it's not like that at all. The Canadian fan base are literally begging for any one of them to do well in the sport of MMA at this point. You know what I mean? Charles Jourdain's having a couple losses. We've had a few Canadian superstars not sort of live up to the hype. So, you know, Mike Malott can really captivate an audience here. And he's good on the mic. He was amping up the fight. He's saying, every single fight I've had has finished in the first round. I don't see this Saturday being any different from that and all this. And he also did the thing that all fighters should do when they're at press conference in their home crowd. He's going to defend the house. No way he's beating me in Canada. This guy's coming over here to Canada. I like that stuff. When they create that sort of like defensive nation mindset of someone else coming over, like, it really does rally the crowd behind him. So this is a massive matchup, and because of him creating that energy, Adam Fugitt was really badly booed by the crowd. They went after him quite badly, constantly booing whatever he was saying and what he was trying to say, and whenever he picked up the microphone. So he just sort of said that the boos are music to his ears and it doesn't affect him win or lose. Cheers or boos do not affect him in any way whatsoever. So that was what he brought to the table at the press conference. And again, Malott stole the show. I want to mention that again. He stole the show at the press conference. They all had a chance to amp it up. Nate Landwehr made a little bit of a co-feature on the press conference by sort of getting his name out there and having a bit of trash-talky moment at the end with with Dan Ige. So that fight is a little bit more amped up. There's a little bit more energy behind that one. They had a pretty intense stare down as well. And yeah, other than that, Malott stole the show. No one else stepped up other than him and Nate Landwehr to make that interesting, and he stole the show, even if it wasn't the most entertaining or funny. He stole the show and he tried, so I respect it. Nate and Ige go back and forth at the end. Now, it started with Dan Ige saying something like, you respond first, big guy, or something like that. And then Nate Landwehr started saying stuff, and they both started sort of yapping at each other, and Nate Landwehr said he's a monster, he's going to keep coming forward, and then the trash talk kind of fizzled out, and Dan Ige said something else back to him. I feel like if it was a perfect appearance at a press conference from Nate Landwehr, he would have got a little bit more out of that final exchange, because there's no more questions after that moment. It was a very short press conference. He has the final exchange and open back and forth with Dan Ige as a matchup on that card. They should have maybe kept it going for at least 2 more insults each. That's what I would have said, to make that a good ending to a press conference and really take advantage of it. If they would have given each other an extra insult each even, or an extra 2 insults each, that would have been even better. That would have saved it a little bit, and I think that would have been absolute perfect capitalizing on the moment from Nate Landwehr at that press conference. But yeah, good one. Mike Malott surprised me. At least he brought some energy. The Canadian crowd seemed pretty hyped. Cool to see Oliveira cheered by any crowd. I mentioned that in my notes as well. I wanted to mention that in this video and make sure I hit home with it. It's always good to see a fighter who never really got their love when they should have got it finally get that moment where the crowd is cheering them. I remember Tony Ferguson became a huge superstar with a bunch of fans around the time where there were no more crowds. You know what I mean? He became a star during that time, and that's when people really started to appreciate him. And that was the worst time, because he never got that moment where he was being cheered by the crowd. Eventually he did, and it was a wholesome moment. So it's good to see Oliveira get embraced by the Canadian crowd. They're really rallying behind him. They want him to win, no doubt, as well. Going to be a great co-main event. I really hope he wins. And let me know in the comments below, do you guys want to see... I did a tier list yesterday on the Ngannou and PFL opponents and all this, and that did very badly. So I might do a tier list of... I'm not going to mention it, actually. I don't want to give away my ideas. But I'm going to do a tier list tomorrow, so keep on the lookout for that. But yeah, Mike Malott. Good performance at a press conference, dude. Pretty good performance. Got a clip online of him. And of course, the Nelk boys are going to rally behind him if he wins live on the pay-per-view. He's wearing a Full Send t-shirt. A Vancouver City Full Send t-shirt. He's got the branding on. He's got the Full Send hat on as well. If he just wears that t-shirt in the post-fight speech and asks for a happy dad from, you know, one of the Nelk boys in the crowd, he 100% could get a massive backing from them, because I know they're going to be looking to rally behind a fighter in the UFC. And I think the Nelk boys are Canadian, if I'm not mistaken. So I think they would rally behind him, to be honest with you. I think that'd be a good one. So looking forward to it. Going to be a great night of fights. Even though they aren't the biggest names, they're all going to be fun fights. So I'm looking forward to them. And... yeah, we'll see if any stars are born on this card. It's not really a card where the stars are already there, and that's what's going to bring all the attention in the pay-per-view buys. This is not going to be a big card in terms of pay-per-view buys. It'll probably do about 150, 200k pay-per-views, if I'm being honest, if I'm being fair as well. This is going to be a card that could create big names in Nate Landwehr, could reignite the flame of Charles Oliveira, and create a big name in Mike Malott as well. So we'll see what happens. Like and subscribe. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye.